little ones, the Sleep Manual Podcast. Welcome back to our podcast, The Sleep Manual. I'm Nikki and I'm here with Amanda.
Hi.
We are paediatric sleep consultants who have a company called Little Ones, where we help families all around the world with their baby and toddler's sleep. You can visit us at little.ones.co if you need a hand getting your little one's sleep on track, and of course we would love to help you. Today on the podcast, we are going to debunk a whole bunch of sleep myths.
There are so many old wives' tales and myths out there that sometimes it can be hard to know what advice to believe and what is just outdated information or just pure rubbish. So let's get started with busting some sleep myths. This is one of my favourite things to do.
Same. I love this too. Is it because I love proving people wrong? Maybe. Number one, Amanda, I'll say it. Ready?
Okay.
Your baby should sleep in a bright room during the day to avoid day-night confusion. Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh,
myth. Busted.
Done. Moving on. Yeah. So what is day-night confusion? This is when your baby would be having long naps during the day and then super wakeful nights. People love to say, oh, my baby loves napping, but then doesn't sleep all night. This is just purely because they are just napping too much during the day and they need to be awake a bit more, and you may need to wake them to help out with the nights.
So this is super common in newborn babies where their circadian rhythm is really immature. They don't really know what the hell is going on. They've just been born. And they're just days and the nights are mixed up. And there is a massive myth out there that sleeping your baby for their naps in a bright room is the way to... I'll tell you what though, sleeping them in a bright room might help, considering they won't be potentially napping for very long because the brightness is going to wake them up once they reach a certain age. But as Amanda said, it's actually the thing that solves day-night confusion is you having more control over your baby's day and waking them from their naps so they don't nap for too long. It's as simple as that. It's not the bright room.
No, so the next thing is babies don't need much day sleep if they sleep well at night. Is this a myth or a fact?
That is a myth, a big myth. I mean, it would probably be okay in the very short term if your baby, for some miracle, was sleeping incredibly well at night and you thought maybe they just... Do you know what? Actually, I know people years ago whose newborn baby, I want to say a 4-week-old baby, it just never napped during the day. And I think they were really clueless, first-time parents. They just didn't know how that you actually have to settle them to sleep and anything like that. And so it just was awake screaming, like actually screaming all day long. But then she slept all night because she was just so exhausted. And I remember them saying, oh, she doesn't need to nap during the day because she sleeps all night. I'm going, it doesn't work like that. Myth.
No, myth. And
that's not going to last. Naps are so crucial to night sleep. That is so unsustainable long term.
Yeah. So this brings us on to babies need to be on solids to sleep through the night. To be honest, this is a myth, and sleeping through the night has nothing to do with solids, especially in those younger ages, obviously when they're not on solids. And both Nikki and I had children that slept through. One of mine slept through from about 8 weeks old, and she didn't start solids until 5 months old.
And mine, I think, was around that same age, 7 or 8 weeks. And no, we did not sleep train our newborn babies. They were just perfectly ready for sleep. Solids will potentially help your baby if they are like over 6 months old and still not having solids. At that point, it's maybe going to help them, but definitely it's probably not the reason that they're not sleeping. If your baby, Amanda, wakes in the night, it means they are hungry. Definitely means they're hungry. Myth or fact?
No, that is definitely a myth, and especially it doesn't mean that they're hungry every single time. You'll find that parents will love to say that my baby wakes and still needs feeding every 2 hours, but unfortunately this is not true. And you can tell this by how they're feeding at 7 in the morning and how they're generally feeding throughout the day, because potentially if they're waking and they're just using you to be resettled because you are feeding them, they will genuinely not need much food during the day. So if you're finding that, say you're trying to introduce solids and they're just not interested, it's because they don't need it, because they're getting all of these feeds overnight. Or if they're not feeding well at their first milk feed of the day, if they're just not interested in food, is because they're getting all this all at night. They don't need it. It could be that they're overtired, they're undertired, their sleep environment isn't great, they're hot or they're cold, they're getting sick, or they just can't self-settle. So there's multiple reasons.
A million reasons, yeah. We're not talking about newborn babies who generally will be mostly waking in the night because they need to be fed. We're talking for an extended period of time, forever and ever. Just because your baby has woken, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're hungry.
No.
So there's a lot of other things you can rule out as well.
This one, Nikki. Some babies just don't like being swaddled.
No, lie. That's a lie. Tis not true. All babies like being swaddled. They don't have a choice.
They didn't have a choice in the womb, and that's where they've come from, all tightly wrapped. And
we do hear this quite a bit because we talk about swaddling because it's just an incredible sleep tool and one of the oldest tricks in the book, and we hear it, don't we? Oh, my baby doesn't like being swaddled. Oh. And we ask why, and people say because they cry when I'm swaddling them. And I'm like, your baby's probably overtired, or they've got wind and you've laid them down on their back to swaddle them and their wind is uncomfortable, or they're already tired and cranky and they're just going to fight anything because they're in that overtired zone.
They're undertired.
Your baby would prefer to be swaddled. Yes, and they realise you're trying to put them to bed and they're like, what the hell are you doing, lady?
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to put down a baby that's not ready for sleep. Babies, and you're like, but this means sleep.
Yeah. Babies prefer to be swaddled. So that is a myth.
Yeah.
This is another myth I'm going to tell you outright. That to improve your baby's night's sleep, you have to sleep train. No.
Nope.
Yes, sometimes you do. Sometimes, for sure. But
for older babies,
not
for sure.
As a general rule. Yeah.
And sleep training, we mean actually teaching them how to self-settle or to sleep independently and to settle themselves or put themselves to sleep. We don't mean following an age-appropriate routine, which is overall, it is super effective of making sure that your naps will be encouraging great night sleep. And this is where you will win at parenting, because you don't then have to end up sleep training your little one, because they will consolidate their nights earlier if you have control of those day naps. When you do have a newborn, those under sort of 3-4 month old babies are super malleable and super easy to be able to consolidate those nights if you get the day right, and it doesn't mean you have to sleep train.
But in saying that, if you do reach the point, and we've helped hundreds of thousands of families in this situation where they have to actually sleep train their baby to move away from being fed to sleep or rocked to sleep or something like that, still having that excellent nap pattern and age-appropriate daytime routine is where we'd always start. If you're trying to improve a baby's nighttime sleep, that is where you should always start anyway. Don't start at the sleep training point, because you're probably that's not going to work. True or false? Babies are scared of the dark.
False. Don't even need to listen to it. All right, so babies are not scared of the dark, and we talked about this in our last podcast, actually. So children under the age of 2 years old do not have a fear of the dark. They haven't developed that. No, like the brain maturity, or they don't even understand fear yet. So so they can't be scared of the dark. They can eventually become scared of the dark, but this will only happen over the age of 2 years old. And if that happens, then yes, this is where a nightlight is useful. However, under the age of 2 years old, no nightlight. They're not scared of the dark. In fact, it's calming, it's great juice, good sleep.
Yeah. They're not scared of the dark.
Okay, this one is one of my favorites. Teething causes babies to sleep badly for ages and ages and ages. It's always sleep, apparently. It's always teeth, apparently. This is one of my favorites.
Is it?
Is definitely not. I've got a very good friend who is a dentist, and with her own baby, initially she thought it was teething. And then when she actually thought about it logically, she was like, no, it's not teething. And the best part about it was she thought that it was teething from around 3-4 months old, and her child didn't get teeth until 1. So you cannot tell me. And she obviously worked it out herself and was like, actually, no, I was completely wrong. Teething is not that whole time. Those teeth do not move up and down in their gums. It is not even a thing. They just go up. They don't go anywhere else. They don't go up and down and up and down. When it does cause a little bit of uncomfortable pain and a little bit of sleep problems, can be literally the day that, or the couple of days around when the tooth is coming through. And you will see the tooth. You will see this white little mound. Sometimes they even get a little blister over the top of it. And this is when their sleep might be a little bit worse. But it's not prolonged. It's just while the teeth is coming through.
So there is like a whole lot of messy sleep stuff that happens from four months onwards, really, in bursts, that teething, that gets blamed on teething. There is just a lot of sleep crap around that time, and sleep gets hard for a variety of reasons. And it's also around the same time that our mum's elderly aunt likes to tell us that they must be teething, and
say these things because your baby will start putting things in their mouth. They'll start gnawing on their hands. They'll start exploring the world. And they're exploring the world with their hands in their mouth, and they're tasting things because this is the only way that they can do it. Yeah. And also they'll start dribbling around that same age, which is not teething. It is getting ready for solids. Their mouth will start producing more saliva and become ready for solids, because that is happening around that same age. So it's not
always teething.
I can tell you that all babies do have that same problem that happens around 4 months old or 3-4 months old, where they do start getting ready for solids, but not all babies get teeth at 4 or 5 months old. Just straight out right, it's not teeth.
Awkwardly, my younger 2 kids did get teeth at 4 and 5 months old, but
I know, but it's not teething.
No, this next one is my favourite one, and I secretly love like riling people up about this too. You should never wake a sleeping baby. Sorry, Mum. You definitely should wake a sleeping baby if they're at risk of napping for too long. Do you know what? My mum, who I love dearly, she used to really do her head in when we would be staying with them, or when she had my kids and they were really little, and I would say, okay, Charlie needs to wake up from her nap at 2:30, and you have to go in and wake her up if she's not awake yet. And Mum would go, but why? And then she'd come out, but she'd do it because she knows who's boss. And then she'd come out and she'd go, she was so sound asleep. And I'm like, yes, but she's happy, she's fine. And then I always used to say, would you rather wake your baby from their naps, or your baby wake you overnight? And that is literally the trade-off. And then eventually Mum got it, but she still used to do this guilt trip and be like, oh, she was so happily asleep. And I'm like, yes, and she will be happily asleep all night now as well, because I've had control over her daytime sleep, so she hasn't napped for too long, because that is really a thing, and especially for very young babies.
And even right through till 5-6 years old, I've got an auntie who told me, oh, your cousin used to always have a nap after school. And she needed to have a nap after school, and she always had a nap after school, and she slept perfectly fine. And then when I started digging a little bit deeper, wasn't long until I found out that the same cousin would wake up at 5 o'clock every morning. So because it's just that vicious cycle of she would wake up so early, but then she needed to have some nighttime sleep still somewhere else. But I couldn't explain it to her. She was like, obviously this cousin's now like having her own babies. But yeah, I was trying to explain, like, if you had pushed through and not let her have that nap, then she would have woke up not at 5 o'clock anymore, or waking her earlier.
It is such a fine line, and there is that whole you should never wake a sleeping baby, and there's some people that feel really strongly still today feel really strongly about it, and I'm just going, wait till you have a toddler then and a newborn, because you can bet your ass the toddler's waking the newborn baby. But it is fine to wake your baby if they are at risk of napping too much, which is a very real thing.
I think that you have to. This is where the knowledge is the power, though. You can't just wake your baby willy-nilly. You actually have to know what is the perfect amount of sleep, what is the formula of getting through the day and making sure the naps are conducive of good night sleep. So this is obviously where our app helps. We have all of this right down to the week of newborns as to how long they should be napping and how much that will add up to be a total through the day, and then that to make sure that your baby has great night sleep. So obviously we have this in our app. We've worked it all out for you. Our app is available on all app stores, and we are just there waiting to help you out if you don't understand what we mean by waking your baby.
The other thing that I often say to people when they get all up in my grill about waking your baby, I'm like, the pediatricians tell you to wake your newborn baby. If they're prem, if they're underweight, if they've got feeding issues, they're telling you to wake these babies so that they get feed opportunities. They're not going to tell you to wake the baby if it's bad to wake babies. And that's another reason. I used to have to try and keep my eldest awake when she was newborn because she just wanted to sleep the whole time. And she wouldn't even stay awake enough to feed properly. You've just... Wake your babies, people. Wake them.
All right, another one. Babies will just fall asleep when they're tired. Nikki, you tested this one out with your first baby.
Who are these miracle babies?
I don't know, but I guess if you're standing there rocking them the entire time, then maybe they will fall asleep when they're tired.
Don't you just put them down and they just fall asleep?
Miracle, by miracle? Yeah, no. So this one is a myth. They're not obviously, not necessarily. I don't know who these babies are that just fall asleep when they're tired, or maybe they will if you're doing something to actively settle them. But you've got to understand that that's what's actually settling them to sleep, not that they're just miraculously going to sleep. So if you are in the car, or if you are out for a walk, or you are rocking them and they go to sleep, it's that is making them go to sleep, not that they just happen to be going to sleep
doing
because they're tired. And with our newborns, we know that you could actually start doing something like that after 45 minutes and they will go to sleep, but they're not necessarily tired. So
yeah, they're not really ready for sleep.
Yeah.
The other thing about the caveat to this, of course, is little ones' babies go to sleep when they're tired.
This is true. And our children ask now to go to sleep. And our toddlers did too, because they were so used to having that perfect routine and their body clocks being just so used to going to sleep.
My friend's 5-month-old baby, he's a model little one's baby. He gets to his nap time and you put him in his bed and you walk out and he just goes to sleep because he's perfectly ready for sleep. So this is the perfect example of it, right? He does just go to sleep because he's tired. But it's because my friend put in the work. She set up the good routines. She set up the sleep environment. She had everything lined up perfectly for him. It wasn't that she just willy-nilly didn't really know what she was doing and chucked him down and waited for him to go to sleep. He's going to sleep like that because he's been set up for success.
Yeah.
So don't just wait for your baby to fall asleep because it probably won't happen.
Nope. All right, we're up to our last one. You should be guided by your baby's tired signs, Nikki. What do you think? Myth or?
I think largely a myth. As if myth and fact had a baby, this would be it. So it's like a myth fact. The thing about tired signs, and everybody says or you need to be guided entirely by your baby's tired signs. And again, this is a little bit of a leftover from what we used to know versus what we know now. Tired signs are great, and your baby might be yawning, rubbing their eyes, staring off into the distance, but that doesn't mean that they are right on the money of falling asleep, like at the perfect time. So we would generally advise people to go, yeah, look at the tired signs, good, acknowledge that the tired sign has happened, but mostly work off the clock. They can be pretty unreliable.
Yeah, this is for sure where knowing and following a routine or following a sleeping program is where you will win, because you will then start noticing which tired signs actually mean they are genuinely tired. I've got my oldest, she would just fall asleep at the drop of a hat, and she would love napping during the day. She would love going to sleep. She then potentially wouldn't end up sleeping in the middle of the night. So her tired signs were super unreliable. She would yawn at about the 1 hour mark, and I would quickly put her into bed, even when she was 6-7 weeks old, and she would go to sleep. But it didn't mean that she was actually tired. Now, however, what I was getting to is when you are following a program, or if you do know, you'll start to recognize these tired signs a bit more clearly, especially for a first-time parent, because there's so much going on anyway. And so you'll start recognizing which ones actually mean that they're genuinely tired. And then you can also look back and go, oh, you know what, maybe she woke up a little bit earlier from her nap just before, so maybe she does need to go down a bit earlier, or she had a really rough night, so yes, of course, she's going to be a little bit more tired today, so she does need to have a sleep or go to bed earlier. So it is, that knowledge is power, and we obviously can't talk about it enough.
Yeah. That basically wraps up our baby sleep myths versus facts for now, but there's still so many other myths and old wives' tales out there. I think we will definitely have to talk about this another day. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and we hope it's been enlightening and not too controversial. Please don't forget to check out our other podcasts for so much more sleep advice. Visit our website, littlenones.co, or download our app if you're in need of some more help with your baby's settling, their naps, or their night sleep, and we would love to help you so much further from there. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you later.
Ciao.
This is Little Ones, the Sleep Manual Podcast.